everyone, and welcome back to the Books and Such podcast. Today, we are talking about something that doesn't get discussed enough in writers' circles, what it actually means to be a professional author. Because there's a big difference in writing a book and building a career. Talent matters, calling matters, but professionalism, that is what sustains longevity. So today, the four of us, Barb, Cynthia, Debbie, and I, are sharing 3 things you absolutely should do if you want to be taken seriously in this industry, and 3 things you should absolutely not do if you want a long and healthy publishing career. Now, for those of you that are listening or watching that have yet to find an agent or get a publishing contract, these are things that you can start doing right now. And as agents, I think we all agree, the things that we're going to be talking about today are things that we want an ideal client to already have in place. This is the whole package, if you will, of what we are looking for in someone to sign on for representation. So keep in mind, these are not theoretical ideas. These are coming straight from our years of working with editors, publishers, and authors across many stages of the journey. Okay, so if you're unpublished, this is going to help you prepare. If you're published, this is going to help you stay steady as you are building and maintaining your career. And if you want a long-term career, this episode is absolutely for you. So let's go ahead and dig in here. We're going to start with the do's. So do number 1, we may be a little biased with this, but we have our reasons. We would like you to listen to the advice of your agent and or your editor. So let's go ahead and start there. Ladies, why is listening to your agent or editor one of the strongest markers of professionalism?
Well, I think that it's important because agents have perspective, industry perspective that you don't have. They might know what certain publishers are looking for. They know what is not hot in the market right now, things like that. And so listen to them and pay attention and know that it's not an ego thing. An agent is for the person that they're meeting with and representing. They want to see you succeed. So listen to them. Same with editors.
That's so true. Humility plays such a role, I feel, in both sides of the partnership between agent and client. And that mutual respect and listening to one another is so vital for a thriving partnership that ultimately you both hope is really successful. So that is so good, Debbie. Okay, do number 2, think marathon, not sprint. We've previously kind of discussed the marathon versus sprint analogy in a previous episode, but it's worth bringing back again for this one. The marathon mindset of publishing. Why is that so important?
Beautiful insights. The notion of a marathon is, for me, pacing. That's the key word. We all want to get somewhere fast. We all just want to know what's going on and move to the next step. But when we think about a marathon, every part of the race, there's some intentionality in the early stage, the mid stage, the almost latter stage, and the finish. And a publishing career is the same. And when we have someone who really understands that this is a marathon, they take advantage along the way of being able to pick up skills and to refine those skills and to be able to make connections. They're just simply not trying to rush, because when we're rushing, we're going to end up making mistakes and having setbacks. But when someone is able to pace themselves, we find that they definitely have a greater capacity because they're growing their capacity over time.
So true. An author was describing a delay that had happened in their work or of the publication of the work. And it was so clear why the delay was necessary. Not while it was happening, but after the fact. It was so clear that there was another piece of information that they would not have had if it had been published on their timeline as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
the editor's schedule or the publishing process schedule. And the other part of it is the growth that happens within the author, even during the wait or even during
Mm-hmm.
the length of the time it takes. One summer, I walked our road in front of our house. It was before the gravel trucks got real busy. So I was walking the road and I was noticing things about my neighborhood that I did not notice when I just drove through the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was walking and going at a slower pace, I was noticing important things. And sometimes it's not that I was going sluggishly, I was making progress, but I wasn't trying to hurry past all the beautiful things along the way.
That's
Oh,
good.
that
like
is so
that.
good.
That's
That is
good.
so good. Okay. Well, Cynthia always has a way of giving such beautiful insight that it's like, well, that's all there is to be said about that. I'm not following up her mic drop. So let's talk about do number 3, commit to the author bare minimums. So we can talk a little bit about what those bare minimums are. Let's see. I guess I'll go ahead and talk about what those would be. So when we talk bare minimums as an author or a prospective client, we are talking about an up-to-date website, an online presence on your social media accounts that are for public view, not private, but public view, that are devoted to your writing life or the writing work that you are doing. We're talking about attending writers' conferences strategically so that you can learn more about the craft of writing, and setting up an email list, part of your author platform. These are things that are so important. Ladies, help me out. Can you think of some other things that are a bare minimum that you would like to see a prospective client have for you?
I think they need to have consistency on their social media presence. So not just, posting on Facebook and then a month later posting on Instagram, but, there needs to be some regular posts like every week. And so they need to have some kind of schedule of posting. And another thing is to make sure that they're staying within their, for lack of better term, but their branding or what their ministry or writing goals. So in other words, if you are writing about parenting and you don't put any post about parenting, then if a publisher goes to look at your social media, they're going to think you don't know what you're doing, because you should be posting about what you're passionate about and what you're going to write about. And that's how you build readership and people that will later read your words or buy your book.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good.
Well, I was resisting this, but it just again came up this week with some authors, which was about that website thing. What are people looking? What are editors, agents, and readers looking for when they go to your website? And one of the first things is, how do I know who you are and what you care about? So if it's a mishmash of a lot of different things, but it doesn't really show the core of who you are and what you care about, and therefore what you write about, then you may have a presence on your website, but it's not a professional presence. So that's where Debbie's point about the branding really comes in heavily, is looking at everything you do from that branding perspective, not because it's a fancy thing, but because it's the professional thing. So I can tell that you're not a knitter who likes to write, but you're a writer who also likes knitting, if that makes sense.
Truly. When I am going to a website for the first time, it's my first opportunity to meet someone, and I want to know who it is I'm meeting. And similar to what you said, like who you are, what you do, and how you're going to serve others. If I am confused, that's going to make it difficult for me as I'm trying to look at your idea, because I'm like, okay, is there a disconnect? And if there's a disconnect with me, there's for sure going to be a disconnect with a future reader. So it's wonderful to have lots of interests, but we want to make sure that at least the first page of your website and the About You page, it's super, super clear about what you do. Now, if you got 72 side quests, you can talk about those on your website. Make sure that it's not overshadowing the main things we need to know about you.
That's good.
Oh, that's really good. Okay, so you don't have to do everything as a writer, but you must do the basics well. This is kind of the take-home point there. And if you've got those basics, you're already ahead of the pack, really, you know. Okay, so those are the practices that are going to build a career. Let's switch now and talk about the behaviors that may quietly damage a career. This is where we get into the tea. This is where we dig in a little bit. So let's talk about don't number 1, which is don't burn bridges. Why is relationship management so critical in publishing?
Well, I love how we're just jumping into not just the tea, but the hot tea. This is something for me, I am pretty passionate about, because publishing is a people business. We work with people, we partner with publishers, we partner with agents, and we do it because we're trying to attract readers. So relationship is at the heart of publishing. And when we think about this idea of burning bridges, what I want to say up front is that this isn't about silencing an author's voice. This is not about requiring accountability when it needs to happen. More along the lines of, think about this about an attitude that we are asking writers and authors to be mindful of when they're communicating in writing or in person. Case in point, I am an author, and I actually had a situation come up with one of my publishers, and it's about books that I've ordered, and part of the financial transaction, there's been something that's been handled incorrectly a number of times in a row. And I just, frustrating. And I got an email yesterday, and there was another mistake. And I typed the email, and then I erased that email, and I typed the email again. These are not my editors. They're not the marketing team. It's the accounting and fulfillment team. And even for them, I had to just stop, calm down, and be mindful and go, how you send even this email to people that you will never meet is going to impact everything else. And so when you are thinking about your publishing career, coming from the standpoint of professionalism is making sure that you are the words that you use are words that are professional, that you can address difficulties and hardships, but that you are not being short or sarcastic, that you are not being rude or even mean. That does not have a place in publishing.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things that's difficult to do in the moment. So it's going to take some emotional maturity to pause before you hit send on that post or that email or whatever it is, and just kind of think, okay, because as you said, Barb, I think the take-home message from that is that no matter who you are contacting in this professional space, it has tentacles. You don't know where it's going to go. And so to just keep that in mind, that it makes all the difference in the world how you're conducting yourself, especially in these moments of frustration. This is a little aside, but I think it's really pertinent here. I just heard from, my kids play baseball, and I just heard from the athletic director said that when her son was going to go play college baseball, the coach that was scouting him asked for a video of one of the games that he had lost. He wanted to see a game that he had lost badly. And he was looking for that player's reaction in a losing situation. And that video is what got him a place on the team, because he saw that he was determined to be better. He owned his own mistakes. He wasn't taking it out and raging on all of the things that went wrong. He wasn't taking it out on the ump. And so I just think that's really something to keep in mind, that how we lose is sometimes so much more important than how we win. So so keep that in mind.
Great
okay.
story.
Thank you. These things pop up and I'm like, oh, I remember something there. Okay, so number 2, don't treat deadlines casually. This is a big one.
It is a big one. I'd like to speak into that topic because all of the 4 of us here and others of the agents in the agency are both authors and agents. So we come at this from all sides of it. We're the go-between person between our author and the editor at the publishing house. Some of us have been waiting for our authors to reach us with the deadline that we set so we could move them forward in their publishing career. But we've also been the people who have had a deadline imposed upon us. And it always seems, and it's just an interesting phenomenon, that it seems like the deadlines that we're given are short, and the deadlines that others are given that give us are short, and the deadlines that we give others are a little longer. But that's just a part of it. But if we begin and practice from the very beginning of our working toward a publishing career, not just a professional publishing career, if we're writing just for ourselves and that's where it wants to stay, I think it's still important to treat deadlines seriously, because that will move you forward. You won't have momentum if you don't have something that's urging you forward.
Yeah.
You can't build that momentum. So even if you're unpublished, or you want to complete the story of your family story, you want to complete that, but it's been in your files for the last 8 years or so, it won't get completed if you don't set a deadline for yourself. But then on the professional level, when you do have deadlines that are imposed upon you by, and that's a bad word, that are said to you by an agent or an editor, some people feel like the deadline is, if you can get it to us around that time. And then we come right up against that deadline for some people, and something is bound to happen to get in the way. Just count on it. Something will get in the way of the deadline time period. The very, very smartest and most professional authors are those who try to build in some wiggle room, to build in a buffer zone, so that their intention in their mind, at least, is to have it done early rather than late. It doesn't mean that you have to send it in early. And in fact, editors, surprisingly to you maybe, don't necessarily want it to be appreciably early, because they have their own editorial schedules already set up, which a lot of authors don't know. But if we find ourselves being the person who will habitually be asking for a deadline extension, or something came up yet again that causes us to ask for a deadline extension, and those circumstances were things we could have mitigated if we took that deadline a little more seriously, then we show our professionalism if we do everything in our power to be able to make that deadline. There will be times for everybody when that's an impossibility. And there's a lot of understanding within the industry that we work with. But on the other hand, we need to communicate a problem with that upcoming deadline sooner rather than later, so that adjustments can be made. Otherwise, if the agent doesn't know and the editor doesn't know, you may have a surgery scheduled and you fail to let your agent or your editor know, and it's going to affect that deadline. That's going to help. And it's the idea of the patterns mattering more than the one-off emergencies. We will have those one-off emergencies, but if an editor or an agent sees patterns of, please extend me some grace. Grace doesn't run out necessarily, but the need to apply it may turn into something that's not professional. So professionalism is reliability, and that's what we want to be known for. Dependability, reliability.
You know what this makes me think of as well is that if you're somebody that's always casually late, and I'm not talking about writing, but you're casually late. All your friends know she's going to be 30 minutes late, or she comes an hour late, give her an hour different, time or whatever. If you want to be a professional writer, this is the time to work on changing that habit and to close in that gap, because publishers, editors, agents, they need to be able to depend on you. And also what you said about communicating, even let's say if you've had a bad flu or something and you in your mind think, I can pull this together and I can still make the deadline, it would be a better idea to let your agent and editor know, I've been sick for 10 days and I want to try to make the deadline, but I want to make you aware of what I'm dealing with. I'm going to do the best that I can. And usually they'll come back with, well, let's give you 5 more days. Let's give you a little bit of buffer. And then everybody's on the same page. Nobody's thrown. But when I'm listening to all this, I'm thinking of a friend that is always late, and how if they were a writer, they would need to really rein that in and change that habit. So to be professional.
That's good.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. Okay. Number 3, our last don't ignore advice without meaningful conversation. So there's a difference between discernment and dismissal. Let's talk about that.
So for me, this one is important because it goes back to our very first do, which is listen to the advice of your agent and or editor. And I believe that someone said, hey, look, we are not the be all end all, but if there is something that you're being asked to do by your agent or by your editor, and you just go, that doesn't feel right in my spirit, rather than just go your own way, give them a call. I think that we can say that amongst our agency team at Books and Such, we value our clients, and we value our clients because they are amazing, wonderful human beings. And part of valuing is for us to listen. There's often reasons why we are asking a client to do something, and then a client may come back to us and they have reasons why that doesn't make sense. And we want to, as good literary agents, we want to listen to what they have to say. And it may be that there is a third way that we go, but that can't happen if we're not contacted.
That is so, so good, Barb. It all comes back more and more. I think it comes back to a sense of humility, of just sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. And the more that we can get clarity around that and get just some perspective from the other person and a viewpoint that maybe we hadn't considered before. I think more than ever, it's so important that people be open to just the phrase, I hadn't thought about it that way before. I think there's so much value in that. And so I love that, Barb. That was wonderful. So, really, listeners, viewers, professional authors, they are not perfect. The 4 of us here, we will be the first ones to say they are not perfect, but they are coachable, they are patient, they are prepared, they are relationally wise. And that combination, more than even raw talent, is what builds longevity. That's what builds a sustainable career among professional authors. And so thank you, ladies, for joining me once again today. It is always just pure joy when we get to sit and talk about these kinds of things. And I want to thank our listeners and our viewers so much for joining us once again. You can listen to this episode and all of our past episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Our full archive is also available at booksandsuch.com on the podcast page under the Writers Resources tab. New episodes release on the first Wednesday of each month, so don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Books and Such for updates and encouragement. And wherever you listen, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating or a review, it truly helps other writers to find this podcast. And if we shared anything today that was helpful to you, we would just be so grateful if you shared the fact that this podcast exists with a friend. We will see you next time for another conversation that is designed to equip and inspire you on your writing journey. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.